But here we are. Thanks for coming along. I look forward to another good session. Today, I just wanted to talk about the importance of daily training. By that, I mean simply developing a habit of consistent daily effort. Like Mitch says, he calls it compounding interest.
Yeah.
And compounding interest is a good way to put it because, you don't necessarily see the immediate benefits of a daily training session. But what you do see is long-term benefits when you look back on what you've done. The big litmus test is the 20, 30 and 40-year high school reunion. That's when you see what's happened, whether you've always got the popular smart kids who had their way of doing things, and they're still shining at the 5-year high school reunion. But then at the 15, 25, 35, 45, the numbers dwindle rapidly. This daily dozen and the importance of a daily routine of training, it reaps benefits long term. How important do you think daily training is, Mitch?
I think it's I don't have the vocabulary to speak about how important I think it is. From a couple of perspectives, just from developing those habits of sometimes, it's a great saying, if you only did the things you need to do when you felt like doing them, you wouldn't achieve much in life. So I think that's the same thing when it applies to our training. And the second thing is with the daily training, if you're training as a martial artist, it gives us the opportunity to work on things in our own daily training that we might not get at the dojo, some things that you might need. And the first one that comes to mind for me is tissue work and flexibility. A lot of dojos do spend a lot of time doing those things, but can't always spend the time that you might need, especially as you just talked about, Shaun, people get older and our tissues get shorter and tighter. So we can do some things in the morning, first thing in the day, to address that as just throughout life.
Indeed. And it is an 80-20 sort of thing. The most important thing to remember is do something every day. It doesn't have to be a dozen things. I made a big mistake when I was younger. I'd plan a daily routine and it was just too much and I wouldn't be able to maintain it. So I'd pull back. And sometimes I used to feel bad about pulling back. But the reality is it's an 80-20 thing and 80% of it is turning up every single day.
Yep.
And even if your daily morning routine is nothing more than 1 or 2 exercises, 1 or 2 stretches, 1 or 2 minutes meditating, that sort of thing. Trust me, that's the little things like that build up. It's not, Yogananda said it's not the big things that make the difference, it's the little things accumulated. And you know that to be so because it's like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And we have to realize that if you were to look back and look at the huge volume of training you do through your life, if you can imagine trying to do that in a single day, it's kind of dumb. Okay, so the flip side of that is, well, what matters most is that daily effort. And it doesn't matter 1 or 2 things or 1 thing or a daily dozen,
And I think going through different cycles in life too is a big thing. For example, you're going through a new cycle in life with newborn. I know CJ gets up every morning and he trains and does the squats and jump squats and push-ups.
He's only going on 8 weeks old, so I can't expect too much from him. But he does wake me up at 8 o'clock and wonder what the heck I'm still doing in bed.
No, but the reality is we go through cycles of life where sometimes you might be in a really busy phase of life and you can only do a tiny amount, but I think doing that tiny amount is really important. Then there might be other phases in life where you do have more time and you can invest that to really compound in a great direction.
Exactly. And like Sensei Mike says, daily training, the difference between what's a hobby and a way. Yeah. And the way, this is like I was saying in Europe, someone said to me, what keeps you motivated? And I look, it's just like the strangest question to me, because that's like saying, well, why do you breathe? Why do you eat food every day? It's just like, well, it's part of life. And I think doing a little bit every day, especially when you get older, I'm in my mid-60s now, so I feel it more immediately. See, your problem is when you're young and 10 foot tall and bulletproof, you get away with not training a few days and you don't even notice it. You know, when you're my age, if I didn't train for 3 days or a week in a row, I'd feel it terribly.
And the other thing too is I don't think I retain things maybe as good as some other people. So I need the repetition of doing basic things over and over again that aren't necessarily super physical, but some of the wrist lock sequences you've shown us over the years, Shian, and the gripping and basic things for grab. I just repeat them every day and they become second nature to me when I need it. But I think if I didn't do it regularly, I would have no chance of doing it when I need it.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you need, it's like that hierarchy of learning.
Maslow's
the hierarchy of learning, the highest one being unconscious competence. So the only way you're ever going to get to the point of unconscious competence is if you spend time drilling with a goal, clear goal in mind. So in terms of 80-20, I was saying to Mitch before, in my opinion, the 80% of everything is just getting out of bed a little bit earlier. Please tell me you can't get out of bed 3 minutes earlier. Whatever time you want to get out of bed. Often people turn the alarm on, it goes once, and they hit the buzzer and they go, just get out of bed for crying out loud. Just trust me, in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you will appreciate every single time you've got out of bed a few minutes earlier. Okay, and then the 20 part of the 80-20 is the content. It doesn't matter. Well, it does.
Yeah.
It does matter.
But the habit's more important.
Yes, the habit is far more important than what you do. With a little bit of nous, a little bit of experience, then of course you're able to create even a short program that has value. Just do 2 things or just do 1 thing well.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I'm pretty focused on making sure I do my morning training, but at the same time, if I have an early booking or something comes up because life happens, I'll just do it later in the day. I'll finish the rest of it later. I don't care. It doesn't matter if it gets done later or get done.
Exactly. And the flip side of that is if you have a nighttime routine, especially if you want to meditate, you want to do some stretching stuff, it's easy to put it off. Yeah, I'll get it done. I'll do it before I go to bed, and then no, you don't get it done. So the trick is do it earlier in the day. Do it at 4 p.m. Do it at 5 p.m. before dinner, before your night routine starts, before you go to the dojo. And like Brad Hansen says, we should never take for granted how lucky we are to have the legacy of Kyokushin dojos. We have these people everywhere who have dedicated themselves, and they do give a lot of their time and energy to providing an opportunity, not just Kyokushin, but any dojo, any activity, which, and look, poor old Brad now he's got to drive 4 hours to his nearest Kyokushin dojo. So don't take it for granted, The daily dozen. So it's just a great phrase, isn't it? It's better than the daily 2 or the daily 13.
Yeah.
It just got a ring to it. It's not like we invented it. Someone else came, oh, that sounds good. They've been doing a daily dozen forever, and you can apply it to anything. I have basically a daily dozen, which suits my lifestyle and my age. And if you're 20 and you're doing my daily dozen, well, I think you're cutting yourself short. You should be doing a daily hard dozen. If you want to do a dozen. And that includes a deck of cards if you like. You want to do the full deck of cards, 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and burpees. Great thing to do, okay? So for example, daily dozen will be different to Mitch's. Some areas may overlap because we both base what we're doing on our Kyokushin training together, especially the training we've done together. But like I said, if it's not a daily dozen, at least get 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
So what would you prioritize? If someone said to you, I only have 15 minutes.
Heaps.
That's tons. What would you say to them?
It's difficult because everyone's goals are a little different and where they are and so on. It depends for everyone. Training should be individualized. It's what I do in life. It's not that simple, but I would suggest some sort of stretching or flexibility routine, definitely, to loosen and so on. I would suggest some sort of kata, 1 or 2 kata. I think you've said it before, Shian, that there should be a few kata that you really focus on that become yours, or if I misparaphrase that, let me know. And then some sort of, whether it's a poem, whether it's meditation, whether it's something that you enjoy doing as well.
So the Shingitai, you've got to address the physical, you've got to address the technical, and you've got to address the mental.
Well, what's your morning routine?
Well, I thought I'd show you a few of the things that I do. And I don't have as much time as I'd like to do what I want to do. Having said that, I've trained twice today at the dojo, and usually what I do is I try to get there at least 20 minutes ahead, and I just have a nice little stretch as I'm talking to people as they come into the dojo.
Yeah.
People come in and want to talk. Well, people talk forever, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's a great time to bond and so on. But make sure you're stretching as you do it. Okay? So I'll show you a few of the things that I do. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We've hit 2,000 subscribers. That's, only took 3 years, whatever. But and also hit the notification bell. But most important, I think the most successful thing that we could ever ask anyone to do is pass the word around. Get the word around to your friends and let them know how much fun we have here. And if you think it's educational and worthy, look, like I said, I'm actually at the point where I'm going through all my videos to cut out the ads. But if you see it in you and enjoy what I'm doing, well, then hit me up at the Patreon channel. Go and have a look. I'll put the link down below.
And the Patreon's great. I'm actually a member of the Patreon too. So I really value everything you do there. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. I literally start off my day with some stretches. And they're stretches which for me are very specific to the health of my legs. And, my knees are getting a little bit old and my joints are getting a little bit brittle. So what I do is I just simply do 3 or 4, because when I go to the dojo, then I do another stretching routine. So I can just do a little bit at home. I always like to start the day with my kyages, simply because I think that aligns your nerves as well as it's not so much the stretch, it's the waking the nerves up as you're going forward. So it's my kage, rocking forward and that sort of thing there. So let's have a look. We'll see some of the stretches that I do. Okay, so literally the first stretch that I do is I have my feet parallel about hip width. So I want my legs going straight down from the joints. I don't want to be turned out. I don't want to be too wide. I simply have my feet about there. Yeah, then all I literally do is I'll go down and I'll squat. And I'll sit here like that. Now you notice my feet turned out slightly. That's because I'm still working on the flexibility in my lower back and so on. I try to come down here and I just sit here. And I'll just sit and squat and I'll feel the relaxation come into my lower back. And I'll stay here for a few minutes if you like. And then that helps to stretch my lower back a little bit. I like just to get this sensation of going deep and often what I'll do is I'll just sit there like that and try to get my head up and bum down and make sure my heels stay on the ground. You see, and I think that's a good little stretch for my lower back for me. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll come up and I'll just dangle. And I'll just let the hands go down. I won't infatuate about putting the hands down really. I'll just dangle. Then what I'll do is what's called the sun salutation. And look, I'm not a yoga teacher, I'm not even a yoga master or a regular hatha yoga practitioner. But what I'll do is a form of sun salutation. So I'll just start like this, and I'll breathe in, out, and just relax. Breathe in, out, in, out, and I'll hold this position for a few breaths, and I'll try to extend. You watch what happens when I extend back. I want to extend the distance from my hands to my butt, and I'll just come back here like this. I'm not infatuated about getting my heels on the ground. Yeah, I can put my heels on the ground, but that's not what I'm aiming at. I'm aiming at stretching through the spine, the shoulders, and the back of the legs. Let my neck dangle. This is really good if you've got neck problems, because it's like a gravitational pull. It's like a gravity thing. I'll relax my neck and let gravity pull my head down. And I'll just hold this position. And then I'll just walk it back up again. Breathe in here. Breathe out. Breathe in. And out. And I'll do that maybe 3 times. Okay, then I'll go into some karate stretches. Just pop that down again. So I'll just do the typical 3 count. So I'll come in here and I'll work to get my heels on the ground. And remember the acronym that I like for stretching, grab a stretch. And the G in the grab is gravity. So I don't want to fight gravity. I just want to relax and let gravity do the stretch for me. Just hold it like here, like this. And then turn and work the hip flexor stretch. And I'll just push here. This is the part I'm stretching, so I just want to make sure. And of course, look, if you're young and strong and taller, lift your leg, push it, make it even more. But I want to try and get this feeling of pushing my hip forward there like that. That's the stretch you're after. Not here, but here. Is that fair?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I want to push the hip forward there. Pick that up. Then I'll turn, and once again, finish the 3 count exercise by looking to I try to get my calf muscle on the ground. If I get my calf muscle on the ground, then work to get the hammy on the ground and use my arm here to open up the hips and just relax into that position. Then I'll switch the other side, same thing again. You notice I have to use my hands because my knees are giving me trouble. Once again, look, just relax into it. Relax, turn, this time stretching the opposite hip flexor, push it forward. And then around, all the way down, try and get that. Remember, this is the bad knee that I wrecked 10 years ago, so I haven't got 100% extension. So it's hard for me to get that, but I still work on that to try to get that down as much as I can. There, like that. So I'm working on this relaxation in this position. Then the last stretch that I do is a shikorumi. So I'll sit down and shikorumi, and I'll push my left shoulder forward to stretch my spine. Push my right shoulder forward. I don't have my fingers forward, my thumbs back, because that opens my armpits. I have my thumbs forward, my fingers back, and I can push the spine around like that, push the spine around like that, and then I'll drop right down and feel that. And if I have time with the muscle, I might do a few shikobumi stretches like that. And there you have it. That's my stretch routine. Then what I'll do after that is I'll simply do a couple of footwork drills. I'll just nice and wide on my feet, and I'll just play around. Not because I am about to do any kumite, but just because I'm teaching this a lot. So I need to keep it at least to a level in my neurology, you know. Splitting off to this side, throwing the kick, split that way, maybe I'll split here, come around, work this sort of thing. And then what I'll do is I'll do some half shuffles back, half step throughs, half shuffle back, step through like that. And then I'll do Joe Lewis, the American karate guy, taught us when he was in Brisbane many years ago, called Come to Mama. We step back. It's like there's a wall. Once I hit the wall, I've got to move off. So I'll be here, step back, and then when I step off, I'm going to get my shoulder on my head. He didn't teach us this part, but we added it. When we get in, we step off and move across. But we also add the head and shoulder movement to get the head out of range, and then back this way. So I'll just do that a few times. Step back. 1, 2, off like that. And if I go the other way, step back. 1, so you get my head and shoulder off. 2, back this way. So once again, step back. 1, 2, back to here. You can switch to southpaw if you like. So step back, move off to there, get my shoulder and head forward, step off that way and around that way, or just shoulder around. So they're the footwork drills. It's just simply a split there in this position. Remember, split out, rotate off, and kick that way or kick that way. It's up to you. The next one is simply a half shuffle drill. There, half shuffle back, step back, half shuffle forward, step through. That sort of drill. You can add on to this split from there. You can add the Gary step if you like. And to finish off is the come to mama, come, split off to the side and around. And when you go the other way, come to mama, split off to the side, make sure your shoulder and head move off the line. Okay, then you can step off that way and rotate, or simply use your shoulder rotation to there. Okay, and then you can finish off with some push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and there's your daily dozen. That's a simple routine for someone in their mid-60s. Do we have specific stretches when we warm up for BJJ? The only stretch that I would add, Mitch will show you some more stretches in a sec, which that's his area of expertise. He'll show you some really good stretches, which I think are really good for opening up the hips and everything. But the main thing that BJJ requires that you don't need in karate is back flexibility. So the only stretches that I would add to that, Marco, which I do every day at training, is I just roll over and just work. There's two reasons for it. One is you're working your flexibility. Two is you're working the ability to breathe in an incredibly uncomfortable position. So when you're here like this, you get your knees down towards the ground, or you extend your legs here like that, where you can join your hands behind, and learn to breathe softly in this difficult pressure position. Good stretch, and then you can finish by rolling over. So those sort of stretches are very useful. That particular stretch is really useful for BJJ, because you'll find in BJJ there's a lot of movement where you need that back flexibility.
And a lot of the drills in jiu-jitsu or grappling that's just part of the training, isn't it?
Yes. So many of the technique flows that you're working in BJJ requires a nice back flexibility. Mind you, there are plenty of people in BJJ who aren't very flexible, but flexibility is the limiting factor. Like also says, the lifeblood of karate is kumite. The foundation, the fundamental, the basics of kumite is kata. The basics of kata is idogeko, or moving kihon. The basics of idogeko is kihon, or standing basics. And the basics of basics is flexibility. And that's a very powerful thing to think about when you realize that everything that you do in karate is limited only by your flexibility. Yeah. Can you show us a few things that you think are important for your daily routine?
I can give you an overview of what I'm doing. It's very similar to yours, because you've obviously influenced my thinking around it. So the first thing I'll do in the morning, same as Shian, is I'll sit in a full squat as well. It can take me a while to get into that, depending how late I've trained the night before or anything like that. But I'll literally sit in a full squat for, could be 30 seconds, could be 2 minutes, depending how I feel, for the same reasons you talked about with the lower back. Then I'll do cradle. We call it a cradle, and it's something that I think Marco just asked and you just demonstrated. So from here, it'll be cradling in this position. This is a really nice manipulation for the lower back, just little cradling up and down. Feels generally good. And then as time goes on, we'll go higher and higher and higher, and go like straight overhead and then bent positions as well. And then you can do those things. Is it Granby rolls? Is that what they're Granby rolls? Yeah. So how this one here, to do this sort of thing too, because I'm trying to learn a little bit more about grappling, so I'll practice that. So I've got that naturally in me.
So that's good. What Mitch did there is actually quite challenging. Rolling forward and backward is always good if you have time. Once again, we say a daily dozen. There's a dozen exercises out of maybe 10 million possibilities. But the roll that Mitch did is not forward or back. It's actually sideways. It's basically what they call a Granby roll. And do it once again, Mitch, where he's actually keeping his body to the side. See that? And that's a really good flexibility roll as well.
So I'll do that. Then I'll sit cross-legged just to sit for a short period of time. Then I'll sit in Seiza. I think these are important positions just to be able to sit. I'll literally sit that quickly in them. Then I'll do a couple of Kata. I usually do Sanshin and Tensho. Then after that, I'll do my footwork drills that you basically just demonstrate. You taught me. So I do similar footwork, both sides as well. So I'll go through that. Then after that, I'll review a poem, usually Samadhi, that you got me onto as well, so you can see a theme here.
There's a great poem written by and it's in the book Autobiography of a Yogi. It's called Samadhi. And I was taught many years ago that if you say it to yourself once a day for 12 months, it will change your consciousness. And of course, I mentioned that to Mitch. And what happened is when I do it, one day without even trying, you just realize that you've got it memorized. Yeah, and that was 1980, and I still say it to myself. I can be saying it. Usually, if I get on a plane or if I'm on a train or anything like, never when I'm driving because you've got to concentrate, but if I'm on a plane or a train or anything like that, I just close my eyes and say the Samadhi poem. It's a fantastic poem.
So I'll do Samadhi, but I'll do it usually, I've got a fence and I'll have my hamstring stretching, so I have my leg up on a fence that's fairly high, about head height, and I stretch my hamstrings while I'm saying Samadhi. It takes me about 2 minutes, roughly. So I do right leg, left leg while I do that, so I get the stretching in there. Then I'll do some wrist lock sequences. But then I'll do a cut. So I'll do a calf stretch. I'll find something like this. I've got something like that as well with both feet. And while I'm doing the calf stretching, I'll do these wrist lock sequences that Xian talks about in the Budo Blueprint, and also some gripping different drills that you've shown us as well. So I do that while I'm doing my calf stretching. Then I'll do some abdominal drills. So I'll do things like thin tummy drills, which are lower abdominal entry, transverse abdominis, which doesn't look like much, but there's stuff going on.
So if I could repeat what he just said, it doesn't look like there's much going on, but it's very important that you do it. So he's talking about the transverse abdominis instead of
the rectus, like just doing the sit-ups, because the transverse abdominis, it helps set your pelvis, the hip position your hips. A lot of people in life, as Xian's talked about before, will have this kind of curve in their back, and I want a more neutral, like flatter position. So prioritizing that every day. This doesn't replace abdominal training that you do in training sessions. This is just in the morning. There's 6 lines of movement for your abdominals, and I'll do 3 one day, 3 the next, basically rotating every day. They're very light, it's not intense or anything. So I'll be doing these thin tummy drills. Then I'll pick 2 other lines of movement. It might be a rotation type thing, like this sort of thing, like a lateral leg lower. It could be something as simple as ankle touches, not super high intensity, but different abdominal drills I'll do. Then I'll do a set of flutters, which is for the upper back. So I'll be in this position here, like this type of thing, going up slowly and going down slowly, going up 3 seconds up, 3 seconds down type thing, 15 to 20 reps. And then I'll do a breathing exercise, some breathing things, and I'll do that in a glute stretch. So I usually find I do it, I've got my massage table, my gym basically, and I'm up like that. But if I didn't have that, I'd be in this type of stretch, like this position here, and I'd be just down, I'd be doing my breathing there. That'll take 5 to 6 minutes, so it'd be 3 minutes each side in those stretches. I usually do a hip flexor stretch in there as well, like Xian talked about, but I'll do the hip flexor stretch with my back foot up on a bench or something like that, with the hips forward, just for a minute or 2 each side, just to loosen that up. And then I'll go have a cold shower. And that's pretty much my morning routine that I'll do every day.
Beautiful. So there you have it. We'll just put this back up. So there's just a couple of ideas, and Mitch mentioned Sanshin Tensho. That's the extent of my current Sanshin Tensho. Before the camp, I was doing a few other kata as well, just to stay in touch. It never hurts. You do Sanshin Tensho, and then you can do one other kata. Doesn't matter what maybe it's the kata you're learning. If you're learning a new kata, do that kata. Okay, if you're not learning a new kata, then do the favorite kata that you have. If you're old and grey and your eyes are dim, you can't do too many high kicks or anything. Seiyenshin is always a good kata because there's no kicks in it, you see. But it's great for posture. It'll fix you. You pull your arms back and you get this nice postural motion going, and it's nice and sharp and boom. There's a lot going in going on, but you don't have to lift your legs off the ground with kicks. So it's great if you're having lower limb problems. Okay, so there's just some really cool ideas. Let's put some stuff, if you make a mention in the chat, if you have some specific exercises or drills that you do every day, because we want to learn from you as well. But that gives you a little bit of an insight about what we do.
Yeah, I didn't start with all that. I started much smaller and just added on to it over the years. So and I'll still adjust that over time, as I'm sure you adjust yours over time too.
Yeah, and my usual daily routine at the dojo, if I'm just warming up, other than karate training, I'll just do some star jumps, squats, push-ups, some ab work, some grappling style ab work. So you do some pull-ups like that, do some neck work, try to keep your neck strong. So neck forward, back, left and right, that sort of thing. Do some arches. I think that I'm becoming a fan of bridging and so on, simply because I find as I get old, my back stiffens. So now I'm doing a lot more back bridges too, which is like this. I'm getting used to adjust the camera. So all I'm doing, which is part of the warm-up routine at the dojo that I train at the BJJ school, is I'll just start here and I'll just work on lifting as high as I can, just like this, and get the hips as high as you can. And you've got to, you watch young kids and their hips go all the way up here. Well, I'm finding now that becomes more important for me, because as I get older, those sort of things, the back tightens a little bit. And I have to say, the back tightens, and that's for me. And I think, I'm 64. I'm training probably a little more than most 64-year-olds. I can't imagine what someone's back would be like if you weren't doing this sort of thing on a daily basis.
It's like Sosai said before, that flexibility is fundamental for all for karate.
Yes,
it's so true, and that's one of the opportunities that you have in your morning routine in your own training. Is if you need to do more flexibility or prioritize one muscle group each day, give it 5 minutes, give it 10 minutes of stretching that muscle group in the morning, and then the next day pick another one, and the next day pick another one. So your body's getting an extra half hour or so per week of dedicated flexibility, if that's where you need to start.
Yeah, perfect. And this is what we're saying. My daily dozen, Mitch's daily dozen, we have crossovers because we've trained together in the past, but your daily dozen may be different. And the 80-20 of it is train every day, do a little bit every day, wake up in the morning. I always say that the fundamental minimum training routine is a single breath. If you are not used to doing things every day, then get up and sit down and take one single breath, and don't infatuate over doing anything else. And then one day you might feel like taking 2 breaths, and then 3, and the next thing you know, an hour later, you focus so deeply on your breathing that you didn't even realize the time went. So the fundamental routine, everything is based on the length of a single breath. One single breath, one single push-up, one single squat, one single sit up, one single kata. Okay, and then let there be a day where maybe, okay, well, today I'm going to do 10 sanchin, 10 tencha. Go down the beach and enjoy the weather. If you have a beach. I mean, we understand that the rest of the world doesn't have a beach like the Gold Coast. So we say a little prayer for you guys every day. It's just like, it's unfortunate, but that's life. Come and visit.
Yeah, but training outside is wonderful, and something that you've said repeatedly about share what Sosai said about training in big nature. Yes,
Sosai just love training, particularly amongst the big cryptomeria cedar trees. They're all 1,000 years old, and the energy and those negative ions, and there's nothing. Sosai said that there's nothing can beat training outdoors. And you get another level of energy, don't you? That day, January 1 this year, we went down the beach and did 100 kata. Yeah, and it was crappy weather, but
it was invigorating.
The energy was just out of this world.
And there's a great saying, you're only as good as your last training session, but I like how you've modified that over the years. You want to share that?
Well, yeah, there's an old saying, you're only as good as your last workout. And I don't believe that one little bit, because I met too many people whose last workout was 10 years ago and they're nothing like they were on their last workout. So my take on it is you're only as good as this morning's workout. And if you want, you can extrapolate that. You're only as good as this morning's routine that you follow between when you get out of bed and when you walk out the door. What do you do? What did you do this morning? That's the only thing that you can talk about. And I always say, if you didn't train this morning, you have no right to call yourself a martial artist. So Sensei Mike Clark said, the difference between a hobby and the way. Well, the way simply is that what you do is something that happens every single day. So you're only as good as what you did this morning. So there's another set. Mac Robertson does his Chinese martial arts as well. If you want to see life is like without karate, sit in the doctor's waiting room. That's spot on. Yeah, it really is. Yes, just start with a single breath. And look, if you can't get out of bed 30, what does it take? You don't have to get out of bed 3 hours early. If you set your alarm at 7, doesn't mean you've got to get up at 4 and do a mind-blowing routine. What it means is you set your alarm at 7 and get up at 7 and spend the first few minutes doing something that's going to have long-term benefits. Like Mitch says, it's all about the compounding interest of life. Hope you enjoyed that. 80-20. The 80 is do something every day. The 20 is the content. Doesn't really matter. Find something. You can see Mitch's routine really focuses on the importance of flexibility. Mine does to a degree as well, particularly as you get older. Spinal flexibility. You look at old people, it's the ossification in the spine that makes them bend over and old. But when you see someone with a youthful, energetic spine who can still move, good on you guys. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you. Appreciate
As always,
it.
it's great to have you here. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Tomorrow is a public holiday where it's a day of mourning for the late Queen Elizabeth. Bless her soul. She was a real gem. And we look forward to seeing you next week.